Welcome to the Mixed Reception Podcast. I'm your host, Barrett Sigmund. And today, very special guest, we got Rob Holmes. What's up, Rob?
Hey, Barrett. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So you guys might know Rob. He performs at the Push Comedy Theater, does sketch and improv. But also, and I just found this out relatively recently, that you have your own podcast. You're a big horror movie fan. It's called Oh the Horror.
Yeah, this is a podcast I started a few years ago with my buddy out in Chicago, and then when he moved to LA to become, a producer, I was left with the podcast. So I did it for a while, took a year off, but brought it back about 6 months ago. So
nice. I did listen to your latest episode where you did like Shudder recommendations.
Oh yeah,
and, I need to. There's a lot of horror movies I haven't seen. A lot of those movies I hadn't even heard of. So I need to check those out. So your producer friend, has he produced anything we might know of?
He's been doing a bunch of stuff for I feel like it's for larger things. I feel like he's done some ESPN stuff.
Okay.
And now he's doing a lot of like radio shows and things out off iHeartRadio and things like that. Okay. So, but yeah, he's off doing his own thing now, and I stuck with the horror stuff. So,
what are some of your favorite horror movies, real quick?
Oh man, Evil Dead 2.
Great.
Brain Dead.
Is that okay? Brain Dead is
Dead Alive.
Okay, I've never seen that. I really want to. That's Peter Jackson, right?
It's the goriest movie ever made.
Really? Because Evil Dead's kind of the goriest movie ever made.
Not even close, man. Not even like in the realm of gore. Dead Alive puts it on a level that it's hard to fully explain. There's a 20-minute bloodbath, and when I say this, you need to see it immediately. I think you can watch it on like YouTube or something for free, the unrated version. You got to find that though, because it's pure amazingness. Okay,
I am aware of the scene where he has like the lawnmower and he's like going through. But yeah, I've never seen it. I really want to though. So you kind of like those kind of horror kind of comedies, like Evil Dead 2, Dead Alive, kind of line.
If I want serious stuff, I'll go with the Carpenter Apocalypse trilogy. So, The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and The Mouth of Madness. It's kind of like a perfect horror trilogy that is very Lovecraftian and just super. It's an apocalypse trilogy. It's very abysmal.
Oh, I'm very much aware. I am a huge John Carpenter fan. I can't believe I haven't talked about a John Carpenter movie yet. So I did ask you. I said, "Would you be interested in doing the podcast? What movie would you be interested in?" You said The Thing and The Mist. I do want to do The Thing at some point because that might be my favorite horror movie. Maybe like top 3.
Easily,
but I know Alfred Crane, a friend of ours. He is also a big fan of The Thing. So at some point,
fan of The Thing.
We need to get you guys. We should all 3. Do an episode on The Thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm a big Carpenter fan. Horror is probably my favorite genre as well. I love a good slasher movie.
Yeah.
Those are guilty pleasures. I did all the Friday the 13th movies. That was exhausting.
They start so promising.
Yeah. They get really out of hand.
I mean, I was cool with it until we got to 8, and then 8 was like, oh guys, they don't even go to Manhattan. That's Toronto or whatever.
That movie is so cheap.
Or Vancouver.
Oh my god, they get so ridiculous. And then, the one where he fights the psychic girl, which is
that's like because it was supposed to be Freddy versus Jason.
Yes,
and then it ended up becoming Jason versus Carrie, and I think it's great because it's dumb and it has Terry Kaiser playing someone other than Bernie. So
Jason X too is just ridiculous.
That one's painful.
Yeah, we did not like that one.
It's not good.
I remember watching it a couple of years ago, and I was like, this is funny. And then I watched it again. I'm like, oh, like this is bad. I did kind of like Jason Goes to Hell. It's weird. It's not a good Jason movie, but it's so weird and out there. I almost kind of dug it.
It's a good splatter film if it's basically The Hidden Part 3.
Okay. See,
Because
I don't even know what that is. See, there's
well,
a lot of stuff. I can learn a lot from you. There's so many movies you brought up. That
it's Kyle MacLachlan, late 80s, body hopping alien that goes from person to person, and they can become a bullet sponge until the thing's out of them. In the same way, Jason Goes to Hell is
okay.
a thing going into people and staying in them, and they're a bullet sponge until it comes out.
Okay, I'm definitely have to check that one out. Before we get into The Mist, which is what we're reviewing today, are there any kind of relatively like newer horror movies that you're a fan of?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a good amount of stuff lately, more on the independent scene. What was a couple that I watched recently? I mean, I always go for, I saw Mandy. I liked Mandy a lot. That was a while ago.
Yeah.
When I think of stuff thinking right away, I can't really think of too many. Snatchers is a really good one that's on HBO Max.
Okay. Wow. I haven't even heard of this. I'm gonna have to check it out.
It's like, it's basically like a teen sex comedy, except with aliens and some exploding heads.
Okay, I'm down with that. I recently saw Scanners for the first time, and that has so fucking good, and it has the all-time famous head exploding scene. I would say I like Ari Aster. I think is his name. I really like Midsummer and Hereditary, and I like Robert Eggers, who did The Witch.
The Witch is amazing. The Witch is like a whole new level of just that broken orchestral score in the beginning just puts you in this jarring mood. It's so good.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think horror today, I don't like the big kind of mainstream horror movies. I don't like that. Every time there's a jump scare, there's that like music sting. Everybody knows, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I know
exactly what you're talking about.
Like a good example is like It Chapter 2, like did that every fucking 5 minutes.
My God. The first part, like Chapter 1, I enjoyed it. I thought, this is pretty good. But then Chapter 2 was so atrocious that it has tainted the first one for me completely.
I kind of agree with you. I don't know if I want to watch those movies again.
No, because now they're doing a Chapter 3, and I'm like, no, guys.
Why?
You finished the book.
Maybe it'll be about the child sex orgy that they
No. Oh God, no.
Okay.
Have you read you've read the book, right?
I haven't.
All right. Avoid reading it. You can do the audiobook. I think Steven Weber narrates the audiobook. It's 46 hours, but it's 46 hours that gives you so many layers and so many levels of the town of Derry that you go through an entire history where it could have been a Netflix miniseries, or actually a Netflix series that went on for 4 or 5 seasons, going through the entire book of it, where you show all this crazy stuff that Pennywise turns into and how he's haunting them throughout all this time, and these side characters who just get killed off and disappear throughout the book. That'd have been cool as shit. Instead, 4 hours worth of film? No.
Well, really 5. That last movie was 3 hours.
Oh, Jesus. 5 hours worth of film?
It was too much. Which, speaking of Stephen King, so we're doing The Mist today. And so what is your experience with this movie? Like, when did you first see it? How did you hear about it? Like, initial thoughts?
Oh, man. Okay, so I saw the trailer for it, and immediately I was in the mode already of I hate anything that has apparent CG because I'm a practical effects purist. The older I get, the more I realize how difficult it is to do that stuff, and using things like After Effects now as kind of accompaniment to things I can understand more. At first I was like, fuck this movie. And then I rented it one day. This was 2008 when it had come on DVD. And I was like, all right, admittedly, there was some bad CG in that, but holy crap, is that an amazing film. And it just blew me away.
Yeah, I would say for me, so I worked at the movie theater when this came out in 2007, so I saw it for free, and I was very hyped for this movie because I haven't read a lot of Stephen King books. I'm not much of a reader, unfortunately, But I like Stephen King. I mean, anytime there's a Stephen King movie coming out or like a TV series or something, like I'm down. Like it's
Yeah.
and so I was very hyped for this, and I remember seeing the advertisements, and they were like the most shocking ending since The Sixth Sense, which we'll get into later. The ending, the ending I feel like is why we're discussing this film. It's
We are,
why,
but when someone says the most shocking ending since The Sixth Sense, I'm like, no, this is on the opposite end of that spectrum.
yes. That's why it's a mixed reception movie. I think a lot of people. I mean, we'll get into critical reception at the time.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like most people like the movie, but the ending and so I mean, it was like me, my dad, and my sisters. We went to go see it, and I was loving the movie, like loving it. I was like, this is really good. This is intense, well acted, and then the ending just. I was so depressed. I remember just afterwards, we were all silent. I remember I went to Burger King, ate a Whopper, and then just passed out. I was so depressed. Like, I just, um,
It's a depressing ending. It's really just heart-wrenching, man.
yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like this movie is kind of under the radar. I feel like not a lot of people talk about it.
I think it's starting to come back though. Watching it again, it's very timely. It is
Well,
a
yeah.
very timely film.
Well, it was interesting. We'll get into reviews in a minute, but a lot of the reviews I was reading up on kind of mentioned the kind of political allegory aspect of it. And this came out in 2007 when the Iraq War and Bush and all that stuff. But you are right. Considering what's going on today, I do feel like it's probably more relevant than ever.
Yeah.
We should also mention this was directed by Frank Darabont, who everybody knows him from Shawshank Redemption.
Walking Dead season 1.
Yes, Green Mile. This is kind of a return to his roots because he wrote The Blob, the remake of The Blob, which is amazing.
So good. So good.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about like The Thing and The Fly being like a great example of a remake.
Yeah.
I would put that
easily
right up there with those movies. Also, he co-wrote, I think, one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I think the third one, Dream Warriors.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems pretty right because it was Wes Craven and I think Darabont came in and wrote some with him on that.
Yeah. So this is kind of I know this is like a passion project of his, and this is kind of going back to his roots. He got his start in horror. God, he's an amazing director, and I'm really like I was looking him up on Wikipedia, and like he hasn't done anything in like since 2013. I know he did that show that failed, that Mob City show. I never watched it. But I want him to come back and do movies again.
He has issues with studios, man. It's a big problem, and I think AMC with The Walking Dead just kind of was the final nail in the coffin for him. When he made a ton of money for them and was like, great, can you actually pay people properly? And they go, no, you're fired.
Yeah, I fell off that show.
I fell off after season 1. I would watch it because people were like, watch it. I think I made it to season 5 or 6 and just no.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I stuck with it for actually a while. I think for the first 6 seasons. I think the first 2 or 3 seasons are pretty good, and then it just drags.
Yeah, I thought season 2 was the big drag because it takes so long at the farm for anything to happen.
Yeah, and then the comics, that's just like 2 issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, that show, I don't know, it's overstayed its welcome. I don't know anybody. It's still on. I don't know anybody who still watches it. But
I mean, I guess it still has like a steady viewership. I feel like people are saying it's returned to form and gotten better in this last season, which is fine. That's great. At least it's not going through a whole Game of Thrones thing where it's like, here's our final season and it's just a train wreck.
Oh God. I know. Before we really get into it, I do know that it was interesting. I read that he has the rights to The Long Walk, which is another Stephen King, I think short story or novella. It might be one of the Richard Bachman books, but so I don't know. He says he's going to make it one day. Hopefully he will. I want him to come back. He's a great director.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
he's meticulous, and watching this film again just kind of proved that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'll paint a picture. Critical reception at the time. So this is a positive review. So James, I'm going to butcher this name, Bardellini, Real Views.
Cool.
He said, quote, "The Mist is what a horror film should be. Dark, tense, and punctuated by just enough gore to keep the viewer's flinch reflex intact. Finally, after a long list of failures, someone has done justice in bringing one of the King's horror stories to the screen. Though definitely not the feel-good movie of the season. This is a must-see for anyone who loves the genre and doesn't demand torture porn from horror." I think this is actually a pretty spot-on review.
Absolutely.
Because you look at the time, this is like 2007, so like Saw was big.
Hostel had been out for a while.
Yeah.
The French New Wave. So Frontières, Inside, High Tension had come out, and that was pushing limits of like brutality on screen.
Yeah, Wolf Creek, wasn't that one of them?
Yeah, Wolf Creek as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I like about there is a lot of gore in this movie, but it seems like it has weight to it.
Yeah, and we're also talking about going back to a style of a 1950s film, except put into a modern day twist.
Yeah.
Because it has that old school feel to it, with that Lovecraftian creatures where less is more. Even though you see these creatures,
right,
it's what you're not seeing and what you're seeing in the shadows, and the dread that's put in there, especially like the webs and stuff later that shoot out. And
stuff. God, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, not the feel-good movie of the season. I can't believe they released this when they did. Because I remember this came out around Thanksgiving. That's like the holiday season, and they released this, like, I don't know.
Yeah, November 21st, 2007.
Yeah.
So, hey, guys, after you eat the turkey, take the family, including the kids, and go see The Mist.
Yeah, well, I did see it with my family, so it's a family film for everyone. Yeah. My Chicago Tribune, Michael Phillips, good and creepy. The Mist comes from a Stephen King novella and is more the shape, size, and quality of the recent 1408, likewise taken from a King story, than anything in the persistently fashionable charnel house inhabited by the Saw and Hostel franchises. Yeah, I agree completely. Mm-hmm. This is a throwback movie. It's not really torture porn.
Yeah.
And very light on the jump scares. There are jump scares, but there's not that obnoxious, like, burn, something comes out. The Washington Post, Stephen Hunter, more political allegory than horror movie. So I want to talk about that a little bit, I guess. I didn't really think about the allegory aspect to it, but I guess there is.
You're dealing with the whole religious zealots, and the brainwashing of the masses very quickly in a moment of panic. And now we're watching stuff that's going on in America now, and I feel like this movie is more poignant and more effective currently watching it when it comes down to the emotional performances. Originally, when I saw this, it was about creatures and creature effects and less about this could never happen. People wouldn't turn this quickly. But after seeing the way things have been going in America lately, this movie, if this situation happened, would definitely occur.
Well, it really is. You look at what's going on with the pandemic. That literally is like the silent, hidden monster.
Yeah.
Like the COVID is in the mist. We can't see it, and everybody's panicking, and nobody knows what to do. Everybody's blaming each other, and there's really no real solutions out there. So yeah, Yeah, definitely today.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess at the time, you know, you had the Iraq war, and it's like, well, should we be in Iraq? Should we not? You know,
Yeah.
what's really right? What's wrong? It seemed like we were kind of fighting an invisible enemy, so to speak.
Well, now we're dealing with what is considered the truth, right? And fake news and this whole QAnon stuff. Um, Andre Brower's character doesn't believe any of this stuff is occurring, even when somebody is pulled underneath a door by a tentacle monster and no one wants to go see. People are coming out saying, no, we're all serious. There's this thing. And no, I'm not going to believe you because or I sued you, but you won this lawsuit or whatever. So you have a ton of backstory and a ton of character development and depth, but you're seeing what someone is saying is essentially fake news. You're lying and none of this is real. And this mist is nothing. We can all go out in it. Jeffrey DeMunn, he's the first to run in, bleeding or covered in blood a little bit and freaking out, but people don't want to believe him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're
Yeah.
seeing it, but they don't want to believe what they're seeing. But Marcia Gay Harden, the religious person, the zealot who no one believes at first, starts spouting all this crazy stuff. People are spouting all these theories of where this is coming from. And all of a sudden you end up with splinter groups. And instead of thinking logically, we end up with mass chaos.
Well, yeah, especially nowadays. Like, you know, regardless of how you feel politically, I feel like everybody is set in their own ways. I'm left or I'm right or whatever, and you know, it goes. I think it goes both ways. Despite what's actually true, what's actually going on, people can't be objective to it, and you know, they're just gonna, you know, do what they feel is, you know, right, regardless of like what is actually going on and stuff. So yeah, very, yeah, I mean, it kind of hits home today too. So
Very much so. I mean, the class system too, the whole Thomas Jane
yeah.
is out there. He's an artist. He's painting movie posters, which I love the gunslinger poster that
Oh yeah, me
he's
too.
doing for an upcoming film. And I love how this is 2007 when he's doing all this.
But
And the
he's got a
Sting
dig
poster in the
too.
background.
Yeah. I like that little dig he has. Like, well, like maybe I'll call the studio, see if I can get an extension. They'll probably just put some Photoshop crap out. Which
Yep.
that's another thing. Like, it's so sad. Like, what happened? What happened to the movie poster?
It's, when it's done now, people make such a big deal about when it's done by an artist now. And they're like, ooh, this is really nice and great. And it's like, yeah, they used to do this all the time. Crappy movies would even have this done. Why? Because it would help sell a film.
Yeah, now it's all just generic,
Yeah.
like Photoshop face of a big
Yeah.
star, bright colors, very, very ugly movie posters nowadays.
Yeah, there's movie posters are kind of a lost art, but luckily you have things like Mondo prints and things like that where artists are able to actually put out their own work and sell that. So that's always good.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because the original poster for this was kind of the Photoshop bullshit, and then I think was it the director's cut DVD
Yeah.
had like a actual like drawn photo. I think it was like Thomas Jane covering his face, and then you see like the mist and
Hmm.
the mall. It's very like cool poster, but I don't know. I guess it just costs too much to I guess pay an artist.
So this is that issue with the studio, right? So this is, I mean, when you're talking about a film that was 8 weeks of prep for the film, when Darabont said he had never prepped the film with less than 5 months, and the studio goes, "We need this done in 2." Like, you've already run into issues. He says he wants it in black and white to harken back to the 1950s, and the studio says, no, no one's going to watch this if it looks like that, which is why the CG looks kind of janky because
Yeah,
it has that oversheen gloss to it, and it's an $18 million, but you didn't put enough money into it to justify that budget that you're putting into it. That's like thing level budget, and you're making back not nearly what you should in order to recoup. They're not going to put more into it. This should have been in black and white.
yeah. Well, that is interesting. That was one of my trivia bits. I think it The movie has like this kind of I guess it is kind of a throwback to the 50s. It does feel kind of 50s-esque, right? The small town. Ollie, the grocery clerk,
Dude, the crowd
everybody knows.
creature things like
Yeah.
that's Harryhausen like 100% just fogged up, and that black and white, the contrast would just look so good.
Yeah. Have you seen the black and white version?
I've seen clips from the black and white version, and it's on the DVD or the Blu-ray as well. Like it's his director's cut, essentially. Um, the tentacle monster looks great. It blends together because it's contrast that works with the lighting, and you're not fighting that plasticky CG that you get in a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is how it should have been, and I feel like movies like The Lighthouse are we're now able to kind of make these films again, these art house stylistic movies uh, that a studio doesn't necessarily have to have full control over.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to talk about more of the studio
Yeah.
trivia. There's another review. New York Post, Kyle Smith. This is a very mixed review. A pretentious left-wing monster movie with about 15 minutes of alarming creatures and a whole lot of bickering. It's a pre-9/11 story, which Stephen King wrote eons ago. It operates in the post-9/11 era about as well as a Studebaker at the Daytona 500. That review is completely off base. I think.
At the time, sure, maybe, because when we're looking at the political climate and the social climate, it was a little different. But 2020 now, it's like it hits so much better. I think if they were to look at that, if that reviewer looked at it now, they might see it differently.
Well, definitely, I think it hits home definitely more now. But even at the time, like people were really pissed at Bush and everything that was going on, and
Oh
people,
yeah.
didn't agree with that war and everything.
Mhm.
So there was like kind of a lot of hysteria and stuff, and what should I believe? So even then I think it was relevant. But he's like only 15 minutes of alarming creatures. I mean, the creatures are not the selling point of them. Well, I guess I don't know. What's the best part of this movie is the factions and everybody going crazy in the supermarket.
I I
That's
think
where the
like
real horror comes from.
I think it depends on where you're coming from because I see this on both sides. Like, because I was of that mindset originally where I wanted there to be more of this creature stuff going on because I wanted to see more of this world. Like, I'm a visual person, so that's like something I wanted to delve into. Fast forward 13, 14 years, opinions change. You get older, you get wiser, you see things in a different light. And yeah, this movie is more obviously than just that. And I think this reviewer is just looking at it as a fan of like the creature feature, potentially, and doesn't see the bigger picture of what's going on.
Yeah. Um, Old Roger Ebert, he didn't love it. He only gave it 2 out of 4. If you had seen ads or trailers suggesting that horrible things pounce on people and they make you think you want to see this movie, you will be correct. It is a competently made horrible things pouncing on people movie. If you think Frank Darabont has equaled the Shawshank and Green Mile track record, you will be sadly mistaken. I mean, I don't think he's going. This is a very different story, very different movie. I don't think he's going for that. He's not trying to equal it. Those are very different movies, though. You can't really compare them.
Yeah, and well, we're also, I mean, this is the other thing too that I'm thinking about that time period, right? Lovecraft wasn't a big thing into that. People weren't making Lovecraftian films. They weren't going the Cthulhu-esque dimensional creatures that have a bunch of tentacles and are all these horrifying things. That wasn't popular. What was popular were vampires and werewolves and Twilight.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's why this just didn't do well. Maybe people just kind of looked at it and like, oh, this is like dated and like, oh, monster movie.
It's why the Thing didn't fit at the time when the Thing came out
That's a good
because
point. I didn't even think about
it
that.
came out around E.T., man. You can't go up against E.T. and have all the stuff about killer aliens when people are all about happy aliens. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even really think about that. Yeah, I mean, Hollywood follows a specific trend. So something like this, I guess, kind of sticks out, and people are like, oh, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes, 71%. Not too bad from critics. The audience, 65%. So they're a little bit more mixed on it. Consensus: Frank Darabont's impressive camera work and politically incisive script makes The Mist a truly frightening experience. I think that consensus is spot on. The camera work is interesting. They do a lot of zoom ins, which kind of caught me off guard. I do know this was a cheaper production. I think he worked on like The Shield. I think I read Frank Darabont, and I guess he got his crew from The Shield to work on this.
Okay.
It was very kind of on the spot, kind of improvised camera work. The zoom ins kind of took me out of it.
Actually, I like
that.
A lot of the close-ups and stuff, like.
Well, they would just like zoom in and do like a close-up. It would do, I don't know.
The push-ins on people.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. For some reason, I think this works for me. I watched it again this morning, and I was just gripped the entire time. And I'm like, this is way better than even I mean, I already loved the film, but this was even better than I remembered. And I'd seen it maybe about a year or two ago. Again, I mean, I've seen this a bunch, so.
It's probably been like, oh God, it's been 10 years at least for me. I don't know, I guess I can see what they were going for. I guess they kind of really wanted to give you a sense of like all the crazy stuff going on, this kind of frantic,
Well, I mean, if you have a tight production schedule, and if they got the Shield guys from there, and they have a and a B crew, like, that's how you can get through stuff very quickly. So if you're doing tights on people on one side, you can be filming other scenes in the same area probably with other cameras. You know what I mean? So like, you're able to keep things flowing, or while they're setting up the shot, you're filming with your B team and vice versa. That was the Dead Alive trick. That's how they got all that stuff done, was he had two crews.
Okay.
So you flip-flop. So it's like A crew films while B crew's setting up, and then B crew films, A crew like changes their shots in another area, and you just keep things flowing. So you got like 16-hour days, but you're making the most out of them.
Yeah. Metacritic, 58. So yeah, this movie, I don't know. It was like mixed to positive, I think. I mean, we'll get into and I think the ending really is where people are divided. And then IMDb 7.1. Small budget, relatively small. I mean, 18 million. That's nothing. Like even back then.
No, that's low. That's really low. Yeah.
Box office. So in the U.S., like I guess serviceable hit. I don't know, 25.5 million. Worldwide, 57.3. Kind of just, I don't know. Like I said, it was just a weird time to, I mean, we were talking about trends and how this was kind of a throwback. On top of that, and the fact that they released it around Thanksgiving, where families go see movies.
I mean, this was a bomb for the company, though. Like,
really?
Because, so in order for them to even break even, they would have had to have made, I mean, they made 57 overall, right? But worldwide, but 36 million is a break-even point. And just because the way that they have to do marketing and how much goes out to the theaters and how much they do on their cut. So if they only gross 25.5 in the US, like, that's not good.
No.
That's terrible to them. And that's just a big bomb that they're going to try and just sever all cut all losses.
Well, like, I don't know. Why not? Halloween releases in October. Probably would have done a little better.
What year is this? This is Dimension Films and the Weinstein Company, right? And Darkwoods Productions. So this was the time that Weinstein had split from
Miramax, I think.
Miramax, yeah. So this was after that split. So I think there were some issues on distribution potentially with this as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I know with all the around 2007 anyway, there was a bunch of issues before we ran into the 2008 crisis, financial crisis. So
I don't know. Very interesting. Okay, so let's get into notes. I mean, I wrote a bunch of stuff down. I don't know. Let's just talk about the movie. I mean, what do you like? What do you don't like?
Man, this movie starts right away, man. Like, you just jump right in. you got this guy painting, and he's painting these posters, and the next thing there's a storm and he's looking with his family, and then the next thing it's morning, and or no, a tree crashes through, and then boom, it's morning and they're looking at damage. This is within 2 minutes of the movie starting, and he gives you enough exposition, like within the first 10 minutes you know who these characters are.
I was gonna say, yeah,
You get so much time with the wife, who, well, we never see her again.
yeah,
But hey, they have that moment with each other. but
yeah, yeah, they do.
yeah.
I think the performances are amazing. I don't think there's like a. I mean, that's one of my categories. Like, what's the worst performance? And I don't think I can think of one. Like, everybody is so good, and Thomas Jane, he's kind of had an up and down career. I mean, you know, he's been in some duds,
Yeah,
but I really like him in this movie. I think he's just such a great like everyman, and
yeah,
like he's just. I mean, you really connect with him because he is just trying to keep everybody calm, and like there's that one scene where like they don't want to, like we were talking about earlier, they do not want to believe him that there's like a tentacle, and I love when he like just loses his shit and like punches that one dude and like you killed him, he's stupid, what's your excuse, you know, like
yeah. He punches William Sadler
yeah,
because William Sadler, in Toby, Toby Jones, who plays Ollie Weeks, explains it so well, like why people are having these emotional responses. He's like, they don't understand what's going on out there, but they know how the inner parts of the store work, so they're going to want to be territorial, and so just let them do what they're going to do, so they feel like they have some purpose.
well, yeah, there's that one quote. I actually wrote this down. Ollie's like, as a species, we're fundamentally insane. Put more than two of us in a room, we pick sides and start dreaming up reasons to kill one another. Why do you think we invented politics and religions? I mean, that sums up the whole movie. What happens when things go crazy? How do people react?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
also, what's her name? Marcia Gay Harden.
Oh my
Holy
god.
shit, loon of the century! Like, just so great.
Like Mrs. Carmody is probably one of the, that to me is like an iconic villain role for her, and puts her on, I mean, she should have like gotten an Academy Award for this, because she takes that religious zealot thing to a whole new level. Like he even calls it out and says she's going to go Jim Jones up in here, and Thomas Jane is right. She goes Jim Jones up in there, like
Oh
crazy
my god,
call.
she's so good. And I mean, that's the thing too. Like everything she's explaining, she's like crazy, but like it's all kind of coming true. And like William Sadler too has a good part. Like he is such a son of a bitch,
Oh
and
my god,
and then
yeah.
he just he's kind of like he kind of starts to see their side of it, and then he is just so terrified, and he just conforms to the insanity that all this bullshit she's spewing out. Like, oh, and then I like the guy from Brooklyn Nine. What's it? Brooklyn Nine.
Andre Brower,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, he's got a great part too.
Well, that's the thing, is that you can tell that there's tension between these people, and they're all real people. I feel like this is a world where people fully exist. It's in Maine, so it's pretty close with the, obviously because it's in Maine, we're dealing with Stephen King, but then it's also, you know, near the whole Massachusetts thing with Arkham and the whole Lovecraftian type influences that are there. So I really like that New England vibe that they put in with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I like that little extra detail they kind of added. Like, hey, he sued me. I don't. What did they sue him for? Did they ever say? I don't even think it's
I think it's
like.
property stuff. I think it deals with probably that damn tree, man. Remember, he had to cut it down or something, and then it finally fell. It was like 3 years it had been dead, but there was a lawsuit over something with the property, I think.
Yeah, and then I like how like it seems like they're getting along, and then nope, they throw a bomb in there, and
Well, he thinks he's playing a prank on him and playing jokes, and it makes sense because we find out through this, through all the tension that's happening as this mist is pouring in. and keeping everyone trapped in the store, that tension's building up because we find out that William Sadler's character and a lot of the locals aren't too fond of Thomas Jane's character David, because he thinks that he's better than everyone, and he's like, no, that's not how I feel at all. But he thinks that, you're this big shot who thinks you're smarter and better than us, just like, Brent, which is Andre Brower's character, who's from New York, who's like a big shot, who's going to be, I think he's like an attorney or going to be a judge one day or
Yeah,
something. They
yeah,
say.
lawyer.
Yeah, so watching that is just like, and then the fact that he lost his case to Thomas Jane's character, so then he's like, what, are you going to drag me through this even more and rub salt in the wounds to make fun of me? And he's like, no, we're telling you there's something really wrong here. But you're seeing all these layers from this history that we've never seen. We're just hearing about secondhand. But I'm like, small town, out of towners coming in with people who are the locals there who aren't too fond of them. And so, this all makes sense. It all ties together so well and gives you such a layered history in this film.
Well, I think that's I just love a small town for a setting for like a movie, because you do kind of get that sense like everybody knows each other and they all their dynamics are kind of established. And
well, you hope for that
yeah,
in these type of films, and a lot of the time you don't get it.
Right.
I think that's why this one stands out so much, because you do, and you're seeing people who've known each other forever turning against each other just because they work for the military and they were up at, the Arrowhead project or whatever, and they know stuff. And
I like how they don't over explain that. It's like you get a little bit, you get to see the army jeeps driving by, and you're like, oh, something's up. And they kind of mention it. Mm-hmm. Like, we're kind of working on this. Like, we think that there's other dimensions, but they don't really go too much into it. Just enough to kind of like, okay, that's interesting. But also too, I like the creature designs. I mean, the CG's not great, but you're right. I do like that kind of Lovecraftian, like the spiders, like they have like a skull face.
All the creatures
very interesting.
All the creatures have like human like teeth, so they all have like these weird skulls. So it keeps them. You can tell they all exist in a certain dimension. So certain bugs or certain creatures have those skull faces, but then you see like the pterodactyl like birds and those like the crab creature and a bunch of other things, and those mammoths with the tentacles.
Oh yeah. I love that shot when they're driving at the end, and like it's just gigantic.
It's so good, yeah.
And like that layer of mist, just it's almost kind of beautiful. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean CGI not the best, but I do like the designs. It's just great set pieces too. Like I love that. I love when Norm gets fucking taken. Like that part. Yeah. I love how the whole interaction between the characters is great, and then it's so just graphic. Like it's just taking bits of his stomach and leg off. It's
just happening. You're just like, there's no mega heavy music type stuff for it or anything that's like over the top, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, not a lot of music in this movie in general. No. A lot of these movies have this, sometimes a lot of time, I think horror movies, I think music can manipulate the viewer, and in this movie there's barely any music until the end, where they're like out driving around. It's like this weird, like, I don't know, like operatic music. It's really good. It makes it more effective because now you're out in the world and you're just kind of in awe of all the destruction and all that big creature.
Exactly.
So like that's appropriate use of music.
Well, yeah, and it's not telegraphing. So like that's the issue with a lot of horror, is that the music is there to telegraph a scare. It builds up to a jump scare. It builds up to this. I watched this again on YouTube because they had it on there.
I was trying to rent it. It wasn't on Vudu, and I was like, oh, I wonder if YouTube has it for free. Sweet. Yeah. Didn't have to pay.
And it's so effective that the music, there's no mega swells in it, and maybe it's this version, but I remember it never having mega swells in it anyway until the end for that like big reveal. And I think that's what makes this so effective, is because you're watching it and you're watching all this stuff happen, but you're not getting all that crazy music. Like you're getting this a little underscore, but you're not getting a ton of stuff that's overdoing it to try and be like, look how scary it is. Jump, jump now. It's like, no, this is unsettling. Why are they not helping him? Why are they not helping him? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you're just watching this stuff unfold in front of you. I will say that tentacle scene, though, in black and white, when you watch that thing pop open, like little knives popping out when it's
Yeah.
springs, so effective. Like, this stuff doesn't look like CG in black and white.
Yeah, I looked on Amazon. I was thinking about just maybe, man, I like this movie. Maybe I should just buy it. There's not it's out of print. Like you can buy it from like secondhand sellers. I'm hoping like Scream Factory will do like a special edition of this because I think it deserves it.
I feel like they should. That's crazy that they don't have another version of it out right now.
Yeah. And then, but yeah, it's going back to like, yeah, jump like that scene where the fly just jumps on the window. Like that's that's a good example of a jump scare. And like the whole, when the pterodactyls come in, like that stuff's great. That's gross too. When that bug like bites that lady and she's just swelling up. There's some good makeup in here. I mean, yeah, a lot of it is kind of CG. But
there's actually, watching this on that, you can see there's a lot more impractical than what it would seem. I think because everything had to be Super HD originally in 2006 through 7, people were hyping that up so much that you could see all the details. Watching it on my computer, I think it was probably 720p or whatever, I didn't notice it to be as much CG or as like glossy as it was when I was watching it like on Blu-ray when it first came out.
Yeah. And then the store scene too. That's so gross. That kind of reminded me of The Thing, where they're like looking at that old camp and the guy's like in the spider.
The MP who they see in the beginning.
Yeah. And like all those spiders are like coming out of his face, and then he just falls down, and they all just come out. Oh my god. That's a good scene.
Dude, this is like a who's who of Walking Dead cast. First off, when you look at who's in this movie,
you've got Laurie Holden, right? Is that her name?
Yeah, Laurie Holden, Jeffrey DeMunn, Melissa McBride. She's the woman who left her kids at home.
Yeah. Which that comes back.
But she makes it. She's like, I'm just going to walk out into the mist. And then at the end, you see her and you're like, you survived? Okay, cool. Well, makes sense now that you're on Walking Dead still after 10 seasons. She's the survivor.
But, well, to go back to actors too. Yeah. I mean, you got all these people that he's worked with. But I do like the Toby Jones character, Ollie.
He's so good, yeah.
He's so good. But, like, you kind of look at him, he's just like this schlubby, like, grocery store manager, you know, but he is actually like a really kind of the unlikely hero of the movie.
Yeah, like Frances Sternhagen as Irene. She's like the woman who makes it to the end with Jeffrey DeMunn.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
What has she been in? I don't even know.
Let's see. I gotta say, like, one of my favorite parts in this is when you think she's about to die, when a bug comes down right at her face, and she just like blow torches.
Oh yeah. Well, but the scene that got me, that grossed me out, was like when that web, that acidic webbing, comes on a guy's leg, and you can it's like just burning, and it's all red, and like
it cuts his pants leg off immediately.
Yeah,
it burns through it, and at first I was like, "Is his leg gonna fall off?"
I did too. I thought that too because it looked like it was about to come off.
Oh yeah. It was nasty. So she was in, dude, she's been in a ton of stuff. She was in Misery, Raising Cain. She was on ER for a while. She's been in Stephen King's Golden Years from the TV movies or miniseries from 91. Doc Hollywood. I'm just going through a few. This is a huge list of stuff that she did. She's been in stuff since like the 1950s.
Yeah. A great cast.
And she's still alive.
Holy crap. She must be like 90.
Yeah. She's 90. She's 91. Jeez. 4 days ago. Her birthday was January 13th. So she turned 91.
Well, happy birthday, Frances Sturhagen from Mixed Reception.
Happy birthday, Francis. That's
Um, I do love that scene when Ollie shoots Mrs. Harmony, and he's like, "I'm sorry, there was no other way." He's like, "That's why I said thank you."
yeah. There is some humor in this. Very, very subtle, but it's like dramatic improv type humor. You find the humor in the really tense moments sometimes when you do dramatic improv. It's the same thing with this, where it's like in that tense moment, there is a little bit of humor in there.
Well, and I think another one of my favorite scenes too is when like everything's escalating, and they just have a conversation about everything.
Yeah.
And they talk about society, and then David has a great line. He's like, "Hey, well, I think it's Amanda who's like, you don't have much faith in humanity." And then one of the guys is like, "No, absolutely not, none whatsoever." And she's like, "I can't accept that. People are good, decent." And then David's just like, "Yeah, sure, as long as like the machines are working and you can dial 911. But when you take those things away, you throw people in the dark, you scare the shit out of them. No more rules." I mean, that's just a great line. I like that conversation.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that scene in Jurassic Park, like where they're just kind of sitting around the table and just kind of talking about like their thoughts on it. So I thought that was really good.
It says everything that I think the audience is thinking. Because at that point, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, well, this is what's happening. And then they're like, yep, this is exactly what's going on. And then you get to see how dumb people are when they actually have to fight back against stuff. I have to say, the first attack, when you think it's a little mosquito that's on the window as the guy's eating his chicken, because they grilled chicken that night. And then you see this thing just slam into the window all of a sudden, and it's giant. So you realize you were seeing this thing from really far away coming towards the window this entire time. And they have their lanterns and lights shining. And I'm like, you guys are being dumb. You're attracting the bugs. You know how that works, right? Even if they're from another dimension, they're probably going to go towards the light.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, should we talk about the ending? I think we've kind of reached that point.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God. So the ending basically, yeah, they get out of the mist, they escape the store, and they shoot Mrs. Harmony and they leave.
Yeah.
We're going to take our chances out there. Better out there than here. And there is a tense scene where he's like reaching from the gun on the hood of his car. That was really well done.
That was the biggest mistake he made in the entire movie. Was
it turned out to be, yeah.
Turned out to be.
But they drive, and then I think they run out of gas or something.
They go over to his house, and they find that his wife is wrapped up in all this webbing, but she looks at peace. She looks more like a painting covered in webbing than it looks like her. Whatever, doesn't matter. She's covered in webbing. She's dead. Yeah.
And then we get a lot of great. The ending is great because you got that, like we said, the music, but then just you can just see, you get a bigger kind of view of like what's going on in the world, and driving down the highway, and like all the the bus with all the web and stuff on it, and like the dead bodies. And I really like the destruction and stuff, and we get that great shot of that big monster, and then they run out of gas. I think they run out of gas.
Yeah. Well, it's that reveal of that creature, I think, that when you put it into perspective for how small their car is, and you're seeing, because when you see it happen, like their car is right there, and then this thing is pretty much right in front of them going by. It seems like that's it, right?
Yeah, like we have no chance against something like this.
Yeah.
And then so they stop the car, and then they're like, like we should kill ourselves because this is hopeless. Like I'd rather just kill ourselves than just get eaten by these creatures. Let's just end our lives. And then they only have 4 bullets. There's 5 of them.
Yeah.
And Thomas Jane shoots them all, and which is really well acted scene. He's just like, oh, like he just
it's hard.
Loses it.
One horrifying. Of them is his 8-year-old kid or 10-year-old kid. Or
which that's just like I couldn't shoot anybody. No. Let alone if I had a son. That is truly disturbing. Like this guy shot his son. And then he gets out. He's out of bullets, so he gets out of the car, and then he's basically hey, monsters take me. And then the mist kind of slowly goes away. See all the army trucks go by. You see the lady at the beginning who left to get her kids. She kind of gives him this look, and he's confused. And then he realized that like the army kind of came in and like kind of beat this thing, and the mist is going away, and the creatures are being defeated.
Yep.
He
if he had waited 5 minutes.
Or 1 minute. Like, and then he just goes to his knees and just yells and screams.
Hammer pulls up.
Yep. And then I like how the two soldiers kind of come up and they like look at each other and just like, huh? Like,
yeah,
oh my God.
They didn't look in the car yet.
just a gut punch.
Yeah.
And I know in the book, so I think they escape. So they escape, and then I think they take shelter somewhere in a gas station or something. I think they hear on the radio. They just hear like a Hartford. They just hear something, and they're like, "Well, let's try to go there. Maybe there's like some kind of hope, there." So I think that's how the original novel leaves.
Yeah, it's like they drive off into the mist, and that's the ending. Like it's.
And I do think, from what I read, I think the main character in the book, thinks about doing what they did.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like we have no, I think he's thinking about that in his head, but they don't go through it. No. Yeah, it just that's the thing too. Like I don't know how you end this movie. Like you could do what they did, and that's kind of like oof, really fucked up and dark. Or you could just have them like go off into the mist. To the unknown. I don't know, and that also may not have been very satisfying to some viewers. So I don't know. It's kind of a hard movie to end. Do you like the ending? I know Stevie likes the ending.
Darabont wrote this ending because he wanted it to have that reaction, and yeah, when Stephen King was like, he approved it and was like, "This is holy crap! Like this is better than what he even said it was better than what he came up with." And I think it is, man. I think it makes this movie one where if you know what's going to happen, it's that hurts that much more. But I feel like what it makes this movie is a slice of what happened during these events. So in a way, it kind of makes it where The Mist, as far as a universe, not including that shitty TV series that has nothing.
I was going to ask you about that. We'll get into that later, but go on.
Has nothing to do with anything. If they had stuck with this whole Project Arrowhead, and expanded upon the events that occurred, the first thing that I thought was, are they doing like a Half-Life movie? Is this kind of like shit went down at the facility and we're watching what happened to a small town nearby, but we're seeing the events that occurred then, and now we're going to get into like not Half-Life the movie, but that type
Half-Life was heavily influenced on The Mist.
Yeah. So, but seeing that type of stuff go with it has all these feelings where I'm like, this vibe is working really well. I want to see this world expanded upon where we can see what happened to some of these other characters as they move through this, or what happened up at the research facility that caused all this stuff to occur. Stranger Things, I think, has kind of done that a little bit, where they've done like, here's the facility that we have and watch all the crazy shit that came out of it and what has happened. I think The Mist has done it better. Even though, the Stranger Things is basically the 80s, it is the 80s vibe and encapsulating, and it's great in that. But I think The Mist is going for more of that Half-Life Lovecraftian. There's something more to it, and I want to see it expanded upon, and I was hoping the TV series would do that, but the TV series was not that at all. It was just blah.
Well, I heard Sci-Fi Channel, and I was like, nope.
Yep.
Like, this is going to suck. So you like the ending? You're a fan of it?
I mean, do I think that there could have been a different ending? Yeah. Do I think it would have been... I think if they drove off into the mist, it would have left it open to keeping that universe.
Yeah.
and seeing the world and how it's changed and hoping that there's a way to reverse things. The fact that right after this, immediately there's hope and salvation, I can see why a lot of people don't like this ending. And it is a gut punch, but I still think it works.
You know what? I think for me, I mean, I don't know. Like I don't know what to make. I've never been. I don't know. It's just so mean spirited, and
It makes it memorable, though.
it does. I will say that. And that's where I say like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because I think well, right. I think if they had just driven off, like you could have maybe done some sequels,
Yeah.
or maybe that could have been the tie-in for the TV series. That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I kind of think I like them just driving off into the unknown. Like, you know what? We don't know where we're going, but we feel safer out there than inside the grocery store. I don't know. It just, I mean, this isn't a hopeful movie at all. I know, like, I just think it would have given it some little bit of hope.
Actually, it kind of is a hopeful movie at the end, really. I mean, as sad, as messed up as it is, and it's a really dark ending, but like they're destroying the creatures at the end. Like
Well,
the military came in there and they're winning, and literally Melissa McBride, who went out there, the very bad mom who leaves an 8-year-old to watch after a baby,
right?
And sometimes forgets that she's supposed to look after. I'm like, no, 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 no. You know that that's a problem, and you do. Oh no. But she survives, and totally like, how this is a hopeful movie in a weird way.
Fucked up way.
It's just people making dumb decisions. Everyone who stayed trapped in there essentially became brainwashed, and they became their own worst enemy. Do you think that they would have actually gone to the extreme of killing themselves had had the events there not happened and unfolded the way they did in the store?
Maybe not. Yeah,
I,
yeah, good point.
I think they would have fought back further. He would have done anything to keep his son alive, knowing that there's some hope with people, and they're not people aren't just going to turn on them if they find others, and knowing that like, oh, if we find a community, we can actually band together and try and like fight back against this or keep ourselves safe. It was all the crazy stuff that happened there that I think really just made the situation 100 times worse.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it is memorable. It's a tough pill to
Yeah.
pill to swallow. I just feel so bad. He's such a good guy, and like he doesn't deserve any of this. And the sad thing, the fucked up thing is, all those people at the store are probably safe.
Yeah.
Probably safe now, and they're awful people. And this guy, one of the only good ones, just fucking, it's like left nothing at the end.
They do let the clerk back in.
I did notice that.
And that shows a big thing. It shows how one person can influence an entire group and have that power. But the second that they're not in that power anymore,
that's a good point.
You're watching, there is that shred of humanity and hope left. So,
whoa, okay.
He was next to William Sadler's character, and William Sadler was easily influenced. And he was influenced by Marcia Gay Harden. And the second that Toby Huss put her down, or Toby Huss, ended up, or Toby Jones, sorry, not Toby Huss. Toby Jones put her down, then he was like more willing to realize he was being brainwashed and be like, I have to actually save this guy. And who's going to tell them no? She's not there to be like, don't open the door. Who is actually going to jump up and say, no, don't open the door?
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. It's got us talking. You know, I think it's definitely more memorable if it was just them. I kind of picture like the birds at the end of the birds. They kind of just drive off. Like, I kind of pictured them doing something similar to that. But I mean, it's memorable. I guess it's more memorable. But man, I mean, I can't think of another movie. This is the most depressing ending to a movie ever. Is there any other movies jump to you? Any endings?
2007's Inside.
Never seen that.
Yep.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. All right, Inside.
That I think is definitely one of the most just you just feel gross at the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like, I guess, what's that one movie? The drug movie. Oh shit, it's escaping me. Darren Aronofsky did it.
Oh, Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's the whole tone of that movie is really just kind of, I feel gross.
Yeah, I love that movie though. I think because it's
I
so
do.
stylistic, I think stylistically it it I'm not saying that it like tones it down a little bit, but it definitely, because it has that stylized feel, doesn't, I don't know, maybe it just doesn't hit as hard because it's a lot of music going on, a lot of stuff happening at once. And
Oh, I like the movie, but
I think the movie's amazing.
yeah, but it does make you feel gross and
Oh yeah, I mean
depressing.
it's an icky. I mean, you feel icky the entire time that you're watching. You're kind of like a little like, ugh, this is a lot. And you're watching how addiction can affect everyone, whether it's drug addiction, addiction to weight loss stuff, addiction to television, et cetera, et cetera. And you're watching the de-evolution of people and society almost, and that's that representation of it. And it's disjointed just like the novel. So it's very effective, and from a stylistic filmmaker such as Aronofsky, who is very about those heavy visual elements. And while there are a lot of emotional points to Requiem for a Dream, I think The Mist hits harder because of its emotional resonance to the characters.
Right, because you really like, I mean, the main characters at least, like, Ollie and,
Yeah,
David. You like those characters.
a lot, and they're very, they seem like really good people, and you want them to be able to get out of this situation, and it seems hopeless, and it becomes, yeah, I mean it just works. And even Sam Witwer's character, man, you feel so bad for him because this girl who he was into and she was into him, she ends up getting stung in the neck and her face swells up and she dies. His buddies who are his MPs, they've killed themselves, or the other guys have killed themselves, and he's there trying to be like, I didn't know what was going on, we heard rumors, but this wasn't my fault, and them turning on him. And then the butcher dude stabbing him in the gut multiple times.
Oh
Someone who
God.
grew up with him. He grew up with all these people, and they turn on him because of her. Marcia Gay Harden just being like, "This is all your fault. You did this," and it's like, he didn't do this. You know he didn't. You even say he wasn't the one who did this. It was this other. It was the military, right? But he represents that now, and so they're turning on their friend, a person they grew up with, at a moment's notice in this panic. And that's what really makes this movie just so just sickening all around, because it's why I think he was the perfect choice to direct The Walking Dead and should have stayed on as showrunner the whole time. Because like, is it really about fighting the zombies, or is it about people or the real enemy that you're fighting?
Well, I still think that theme rings true
It's
throughout the series of Walking Dead, but
it does, but I think he
Jesus Christ, they just drag so many plot elements out, and it does.
mhm.
I mean, there's always that underlying theme of that, but I really kind of got bored with it. It did feel, it started to get very formulaic.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that
Yeah.
Darabont does it so well with The Mist in a 2 hour runtime, that putting him on an entire, just, they should have kept him on.
Yeah, they AMC fucked up.
They
Like,
did, because he was put on because he represents those thematic elements perfectly, and he showed it with season one. Had he continued to do so, The Walking Dead would be, I know people love it, but it would be 10 times better than it has been.
oh, he directed the pilot. The pilot is great,
Yeah. He
fantastic.
and he was I mean, he was the season one showrunner too. So it's just like, that's, you can see his footprint all over it, and it's just awesome. Um, I just wish they had continued with him. So
Also, it's worth mentioning this because Mrs. Carmody, she wants to sacrifice Billy and Amanda.
hmm
Interesting because David shoots them both, and that's when the mist rescinds. So there's an extra layer of like, well, okay, she's a nut job, but is God really like using her as a vessel? Because everything that she talks about kind of comes true in the movie. So that kind of adds another kind of interesting layer to the movie for me.
Oh, man.
If you think about it, yeah, they wanted to sacrifice Billy and Amanda, and he actually does inadvertently sacrifice them, so to speak, and then it ends. Because this whole thing was in her mind was like, we kind of need to sacrifice some people. We need to pay for our sins.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Very interesting. I mean, I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the ending, but it is memorable. I will say though, I forgot what I was going to say actually. Yeah, I don't know. The ending is what it is. I don't know.
I mean, it's brutal, but it's a good talking point, and it does open up a lot of stuff with, was she right? I don't think she was. I think that it was coincidental, more than anything. But now he's going to have to think about that for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. So let's go into trivia. This is actually an interesting segue, the ending, because Frank Darabont, he went with Dimension because they were the only studio that would let him do the ending. Yeah, because I think he shopped this around, because I know, like I said earlier, this was like kind of a passion project for him. I know he shopped this script around, and I think every studio was like, we can't have that ending. Because I was surprised, like, today, like, well, I guess Frank Darabont is kind of a big-name director, and he is kind of an auteur. So I guess a lot of times, like Quentin Tarantino or whatever, Christopher Nolan, the studio will let them do whatever.
Yeah.
But I am kind of shocked that, to an extent, that like they let like this was the ending, because it's so hard to swallow for just a regular audience, a mainstream audience.
Yeah.
But I also read too, like I think, like Dimension was like, okay, yeah, you can make the movie with the ending you like, if your salary isn't as high and the budget's not as high. There's a lot he had to do to like get the movie he wanted made, and no matter, like, everyone said he couldn't do it in black and white because he really wanted to do it in black and white, and Dimension was like, absolutely not. So he really had to compromise. I also thought there's another little tidbit. Speaking of Walking Dead, Frank Darabont wanted Thomas Jane to play Rick Grimes, which I would have loved.
That would have been great.
That would have been really great. And there also is, initially, the script had a scene at the beginning, Project, what is it, Arrow?
Yeah,
Arrowhead, and they actually show the monsters, like, come out of the dimensions and stuff, which I'm glad they got that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way they did this better. I think it works. I think it's way more effective. As cool as that kind of sounds to a point, I don't know if it could have been done well. Because I mean, they cut $12 million off this budget. He was offered $30 million.
That's right. Yep.
If he changed the ending, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that," because apparently he had planned this ending and worked on this for like 20 years.
Oh yeah, passion project.
Passion project. So this was something. I wish they had just given him $30 million and said, "You know what? Make it in black and white. Do whatever you want, man." But nowadays, he could do that. $30 million, he would get that.
Nowadays, he could, like, Netflix would give him a chance.
Yeah, and it would be amazing. It would be.
That is one of the kind of, I don't know. I got the mixed opinions on the movies going straight to streaming, because I think there's just too much crap. But plus side of that is they are more open to letting these filmmakers do whatever they want, because it's on Netflix. You know what I mean? It's not like a big budget thing that we have to sell for millions of people in movie theaters. So you have a little bit more like freedom and kind of leeway with something like on like a streaming service.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
wait, you know Darabont wrote the screenplay for The Blob, right? The '88 one.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah.
I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing that he did The Fly 2 as well.
I don't hate The Fly 2.
I don't hate it either.
Hot take. It's not nearly as good as the first one, but I found it entertaining. I thought it was good. It's been a while since I've seen it, actually.
It's insanely violent, and it's a stupid fun creature feature. Nothing groundbreaking, but hey, it exists.
I'm gonna go to. Let's do some categories here. So, what is your favorite scene of the movie?
Oh man. Um Honestly, it's becoming the attack in the supermarket because of how stupid everyone is when they're in there. They're like, "Hey man, let's fight them with fire and torches," and then everyone ends up accidentally setting themselves on fire. And
Yeah,
Jeffrey DeMunn calls it out later, and he's like, "Well, I guess torches were a bad idea. We almost burned the entire store down. That was dumb." And it's like, "Yeah, it was. That was dumb." But watching that scene with those creatures, like the pterodactyl creatures coming in and attacking, um, and just everything unfolding into chaos, I thought that was amazing. Either that or the pharmacy scene. The pharmacy scene is amazing too.
there's so many great scenes. It's so hard. This one's really hard to pick. I don't know. I think I just kind of like the escalation at the end where, you know, they got, Thomas Jane cornered and then Ollie shoots her. And then the
Yeah.
subsequent escape to the cars. And he's like trying to reach for that gun on the hood. I think that's really well done. What is your worst scene of the movie?
Oh man. Oh, the CG on the tentacles when we see the creatures the first time, because that's the first time we really see anything are those tentacles that grab Chris Owens' character and pull him underneath the door. The way they look is they have that plasticky, like deep rising esque tentacle look, and I'm like, dude, that was a decade earlier. Like,
The dog food bag that the tentacles rip open. That was super hokey. Super
yeah,
hokey.
yeah, and it's one of those that to me was the scene where in black and white it looks amazing. In color, you can see why
Yeah.
maybe they shouldn't have.
Worst scene for me. I don't know. I want to say the ending, but I don't know. The ending got us talking. Like it is a very interesting discussion. I don't know. This one's hard to do. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't. I don't even want to say the ending, but it is probably my least favorite part, just because it's so depressing. So I guess I'll go with the ending.
I mean,
There's
it
not.
makes
I don't think
sense.
there's a
It's
bad. I don't think there's a bad scene in the movie.
no, I don't think there's a bad scene. It's very effective. Very effective.
Um, is there like a quote, like best quote? And we have done a lot of quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of like the conversation they have.
There's one that I'm like, finally, when the cashier guy comes out after they see the tentacle. No one is believing that this tentacle exists, and they're just making fun. And Andre Brower doesn't want to go look because they're just going to have some rubber snake. So one of the cashiers and one of this other guy who later decides to tie a rope around himself, and half of him comes back. Um, that rope burn scene, by the way, is absolutely nasty. We
Oh
don't see
God, yeah.
rope burn, but we know it's happening. Um, the best line was they see the tentacle, they poke it, the thing dissolves, and they just come out, and the guy says, "It appears we have a problem of some magnitude
That's
here."
the store manager. He's such a weenie.
The store manager, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it is, yeah. Um, that to me was the line of the movie. It's like, yes, finally, yes, we do.
I'm gonna go different. I mean, I've quoted a lot of lines. I do like that scene where they're just kind of just talking about what's going on, just having a conversation. But I did like when William Shatner was like, "If you don't shut up, I'm gonna stick my size 10 boot up your ass" or something.
Yes, that was great.
And it's crazy. It's fun. It's ironic because later on he ends up following her.
Yeah.
But best unintentional comedic moment. I mean, for me, it's when the guy like trips on the bucket and sets himself on fire.
That is do you want to know what the to me the most unintentional comedic moment is?
What's that?
The ending.
Ah, yeah, I guess.
It is because you get two reactions from it. You get one reaction from people where they're just like floored and jaw drop, and it hits them that hard. And then you get the other ending where people just start laughing, being like, "Are you serious? Are you kidding me? Like, what?" It's just so absurd and ridiculous, and just, if you look at it in a perspective of, wait 1 minute, dude,
Yeah.
1 minute.
Hilarious.
But I mean, it's the dark, it's the ultimate like dark comedy.
Yeah.
That would be something that you would see on a really dark Kids in the Hall sketch.
Like that would it almost feels like it's something on Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Like, like well, best performance. This one, Marcia Gay Harden, I feel like we have to go with here. I mean, everybody's great, but she, like, we were talking,
yeah,
should have been nominated for an Oscar, maybe.
yeah, I would say Marcia Gay Harden, and I mean, even Thomas Jane, man, this is probably his best performance.
I like him in Boogie Nights.
Oh my gosh, forgot he was in that.
He doesn't have a big part in Boogie
No.
Nights, but his character is entertaining in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Thomas Jane. I just feel like it. I don't know.
I think his emotional response at the end, it's like,
he had a makings of a star. It just never happened for him. He did a lot of schlock.
yeah,
Some fun schlock. He did Dreamcatcher, another Stephen King movie. And
Ass Weasels or Ass Weasels.
Shit Weasels.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shit Weasels. Whatever, man. It was the most ridiculous. That movie.
I don't want to talk about that movie one day. That movie's so fun.
Just for Morgan Freeman's eyebrows.
Oh my god. Yeah.
That's like its own own segment, is just talking about his eyebrows.
Yeah, a Big Reception episode, whatever. Part 1, the eyebrows. The last category, worst performance. I don't even think even the kid, like, I hate kid actors, but even the kid, I think, sells it. There's that one scene where he's like just like crying and losing it, and really good. I don't think there's a bad actor. I think everybody plays their roles very well. It's just a well cast movie.
Oh wait, there's like a couple of people. The guy who goes with them and gets, no, actually, he's not even a bad actor, but he gets the webbing on the face.
Yeah.
When he goes into the pharmacy, he's just kind of like background guy who's there and then has a few lines.
Yeah.
All right. He might be the worst of the bunch, but he's not bad.
No one's bad.
He's less good.
I think we've kind of reached the end of this. I mean, give me your final thoughts and rate this movie out of 5.
The Mist is a classic. It will probably go down in history as being one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever, but it is a film that needed time to become like a cult classic, to then become a masterpiece. I think this is a movie that needs to be seen in black and white, because from what I've seen of it, I'm going to end up finding this and definitely watching this, because it just looks so much better. And I give it 5 stars easily.
5 stars. Wow. I think I'm going to go 4 out of 5, because the ending is just too hard for me to swallow. However, the ending doesn't ruin the movie for me. And as we've talked, I mean, we spent 30 minutes talking about just the ending. I mean, it has people talking, and there's a lot you can, there's just a lot of layers, a lot of stuff you can discuss about the ending. As we mentioned, like, he sacrificed them. Was this really, all from God? Like, was this, I think it's a great movie. I'm glad Frank Darabont got to make the movie he wanted. The colorized version notwithstanding. I think it's just a well acted and just a well made, like, put together throwback.
Oh yeah.
It's just good. It's just a nice little classic horror movie. Like I said, 4 out of 5. I really like it. I agree with you. I'd probably say it would be one of the better Stephen King adaptations. I mean, top 10. I don't know. What are some other Stephen King movies you like?
I mean, it's Darabont did Shawshank and Green Mile, so those are both, Stephen King stories. I like the original Pet Cemetery. The remake
Oh,
was
the remake sucked.
it had its moments, but you could tell it was a studio film. It had that it just yeah about it. Yeah, I think Pet Cemetery. What's another good Stephen King
The
one?
Shining's a no-brainer.
Oh, dude, The Shining. Yeah,
That'd be an
easily.
interesting one to discuss because people didn't like that movie when it came out, and Stephen King hates that movie.
Yeah, but it's all about creating atmosphere and tension, man.
Yep.
And whew, yeah, Kubrick did.
Well, great atmosphere in this movie too. The
Yeah.
whole setting and look. I
Mhm.
mean, there's something about a mist that is just spells horror. You
I
know?
like how no one calls it a fog.
Right. Call it the mist.
No one goes, "There's a fog rolling through," and normally, because that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, "You're calling
Yeah.
it a mist.
Well, they
You're not
can't
calling."
call it they can't call it the
I
fog.
know they can't
There
call it
was
the fog
already
with
a
John
fog.
Carpenter, but that's what made it really
Yeah.
funny. And I love that thing poster that he's painting too, because it makes this film definitely feel like what the thing was, which was an 80s film harkening back to the 50s. And this, because it was a remake of that, and this felt like it was meant to be that throwback to the 50s and kind of like that was the nod being thrown to it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I think we did it. We
Yay.
dissected the mist for like an hour and a half. Dude, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This
Yeah,
was a
great
blast.
choice. It was great to rewatch this. I mean, I hadn't seen it in like 10 years. If anyone's listening hasn't seen the movie, which I hope you would have because we spoiled the whole damn thing, watch it. It's great. Also, check out Rob's podcast, Oh the Horror. I only watched one episode, listened to one episode, but I'm gonna listen to more. You have a great radio voice. You have
Thanks.
a good voice like on there. I was like, this guy should do radio.
Maybe one day that'd be cool.
So, all right. Well, that is it. I will see. We do new episodes every 2 weeks. So, thanks for listening, and I will see you later. Bye.